What is the purpose of a Judicial Conduct Board that doesn't review severe allegations of judicial misconduct? How effective can judicial reform be if the study is funded by the same individuals who are complicit in judicial corruption? Welcome to PA Voter Information Network. This is Larry DeMarco, your host. Do you watch my YouTube channel but haven't subscribed yet? Why not now? It's easy and free. Just click the red button and the bell right beside it, and you will be notified of all new content. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. In part 1, we discussed Larry Hohol's litigation with a former business partner who was permitted to drain his bank account by a corrupt judge, causing him to file for bankruptcy. In this episode, we will hear Mr. Hohol discuss the failure of the Judicial Conduct Board to review a severe example of judicial misconduct and Pennsylvania's failure to conduct meaningful reform.
The safeguards that are out there, they don't exist. Believe me when I tell you, the Judicial Conduct Board is my focus. That is ground zero for me. Those people need to be investigated and need to be investigated by a federal grand jury. I had some very in-depth dealings with the Judicial Conduct Board. I filed a formal complaint with the JCB against Judge Cappellini. Specifically because of his personal connections with attorney Arthur Picone. They're best friends, which they've admitted openly. Godparents to each other's children, were former law partners together in 2 law firms. I mean, attorney Picone should not be hearing, or at that time, Judge Cappellini's retired now, but he should not have been hearing cases in front of Judge Cappellini, period. Any cases, not just my case, any case.
Was that brought up in court?
Yes,
that there was a conflict
absolutely,
of interest?
positively.
And how was this defended?
Judge Cappellini sat on the bench and said, I can assure everyone involved that I will not let my personal relationship with attorney Picone influence any decision that I need to make from the bench, period. End of story. And that just didn't give me any comfort at all, because, especially when I saw them having lunch together during our break in some of my testimony at the Uptown restaurant with 2 of my attorneys present.
That didn't instill a lot of confidence that you had much of a chance in this thing. So you take all this evidence to the JCB, and what happened?
I filed a formal complaint, and I met many, many times with the chief investigator, a guy by the name of Ken Fennell. And he said, you got some real issues here. He said, I'm going to authorize a formal investigation, which he did, or whoever does that, he took it to wherever he needed to. And he came up and interviewed some people up here and said flat out, he said, I hope this judge doesn't have any plans for his big fat pension. That's a quote, because he's going down. Absolutely. Turns out Judge Cappellini was actually a member of the JCB. He was there were 8 members on the panel at that time, and he was one of the judges that was a member. I didn't know it at the time. I found out. Did
anyone know it at the time? It was a public record?
Yeah, it's public record.
Okay.
But if anything, he should just have been, set to the side, and let's have this investigation continue. This is all in the book, by the way. I got to the point where at any moment I was expecting the judge to be brought up on charges by the JCB and a hearing to be held. And instead, I got a 2-sentence letter in the mail that my complaint had been investigated and that it had no merit and it was dismissed. I obviously was very upset. I called Mr. Fennell many, many times. He never returned my call. So the last message I left him was, if you don't return my call, I'm coming to Harrisburg. So he didn't return my call, so I went to Harrisburg. And I sat in his office for the better part of a day. And while he was held up in his office, he couldn't even go to the men's room because he would see me. And he stayed in his office till about 3 o'clock that afternoon and finally saw me. And he told me, and this is in my book, and I will take a polygraph test. He told me flat out, after about an hour and a half of me badgering him as to what happened, He told me that if he were pushed into a corner, he would lie about what he was about to tell me, but he told me that it was fixed. He told me flat out it was fixed. He said that the judge had contacted the members of the board, told them that he was about to retire, and that they could better spend their efforts and their money from their budget pursuing other activities, as he was going to be out of the picture anyway. And they agreed.
In the aftermath of Larry Hohol's personal economic tragedy, he contacted the reform organization Pennsylvania for Modern Courts. He discussed his initial optimism and then his criticism.
I spent a lot of time with this group. It's a nonprofit Pennsylvania group, and it's called Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts. And when I was researching more information on my book and writing my book, I contacted these people and spent a lot of time on the phone with them. And I was very encouraged by who I spoke with. I spoke with very knowledgeable attorneys that had a staff of people that had really nice offices, and they returned my calls when they weren't available. And it was like, they took all kinds of notes. They researched things. I'm like, these people are on top of it. I mean, this is wonderful. And I got to the point where I wanted to make a donation to them. I mean, I recommended everybody out there call these people up and say, I want to make a donation to you, because they don't take donations. I'm like, what? You people are all volunteers? That's even more incredible. No, we're all very highly paid, thank you. Well, where do you get your money from if you don't take donations? Well, I couldn't get an answer. Well, they are funded by the government. 100% of every dollar they spend comes from the government. So this organization is out there kind of running, trying to find out who the troublemakers are, what the organizations, the grassroots organizations are that are out there, and what their plans are to upset the apple cart. If this particular organization, if they upset the apple cart, their funding will be cut. If they help push the apple cart, wonderful things will happen.
So they're like the fox investigating the hen.
Yes.
Oh, that's terrible to find out.
It really is. I was so disheartened by it.
Did you mention it to them at all?
Oh, yeah.
And what did they say? Oh, Larry.
Yeah. Yes, I did. And I don't communicate with them anymore. I was appalled, to say the least.
Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts was commissioned after the infamous Kids for Cash scandal, where children were sold into private prisons for financial gain. Lawyers in Luzerne County observed the Kids for Cash scandal, complained to the Judicial Conduct Board, but the complaints fell on deaf ears. So the rest of the county looked the other way, because there was no relief to be obtained from the government. So there was a need for significant upgrades to the system. Although the report by the Pennsylvanians for Modern Courts commissioned detailed improvements that were made, the impact on the lawyers is nominal if you practice law in a county where judges have deep conflicts of interests with the lawyers in the county. Pennsylvania's Code of Judicial Conduct was adopted by the state Supreme Court in 1974, and it requires the Pennsylvania judges avoid even the appearance of impropriety in all activities. However, having a general rule which requires the judge to avoid even appearance of conflict of interest doesn't help if the Judicial Board doesn't enforce the rule. Every jurisdiction needs concrete red line guidelines for disqualification and recusal motions, along with an effective Judicial Conduct Board. Based on the track record of Pennsylvania, it has neither. This is the second of a two-part series. If you didn't see the first part, go back and see it to get the complete picture. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up button, forward this link to all the people on your contact list and Facebook friends, and leave any comments below. I would love to hear your feedback. Signing off. Tune in next time. Bye for now.